So here's what everybody came to see. We will be talking iPhone development, and we will be talking about doing it with C# through MonoTouch. How many here have experience with MonoTouch or Mono for Android? Like 3 people. Okay. That's not shocking. How many here have used Mono to write cross-platform.NET applications on Linux or Mac? Again, 3 people. So this is actually the second part of a series. Last month we did iPhone development with Objective-C, which is the native language you write iPhone apps in. There's video for that, provided none other than Claudio. By the way, if you haven't met Claudio, here he is. Has his own fan club. And forums.
One cycle
and his own
stalker.
forum, and his own forums.
I'm petitioning Stack Exchange right now.
So, what we're going to do is, last month we built a Twitter search app in Objective-C, native iPhone language. We will be writing the same application using C# with MonoTouch. So, if you're kind of lost as to where we might be, that's kind of where we're at. Wrote it one way using native. Today we're going to do the cross-platform version. So before we get started, since I figured nobody here really knew what Mono was, we're going to have a quick, brief overview as to what Mono is. First things first, it's a C# compiler. It has its own C# compiler written in C#. If you would like to know how to write a C# compiler in C#, you can go to the Mono GitHub website and look at their source code. It's open source. It's a runtime. It has both the CLR and DLR. On the regular Mono platform, you can actually run things like C#, VB.NET. They do Boo, Iron Ruby, Iron Python work, and I believe they have F# working as well on Mono. When Microsoft released the source code for F#, the Mono guys took it and yes, you also get Silverlight, which is actually called Moonlight on the Mono side, but it is pretty close to full-on Silverlight. I think they're about a version and a half, or like a half a version behind, or full version behind, but it works pretty well. Finally, Mono is cross-platform. This is the important piece, because it's cross-platform, you can write applications for all of these platforms right here. You can write your code in C# one time and run it across all of these. There are some gotchas. We'll cover the MonoTouch, Mono for Android specific ones a little bit later. But for the most part, you should be able to write your code once, run it anywhere. A lot like Java, but with C#, because everybody here likes C# over Java, right? Yes, yay. Okay. If you're interested in running an application you've already written in C# under Mono on, say, Linux or Mac OS X, there is the Mono Migration Analyzer, MoMA, and it's available at the Mono website. You download it, you drop your DLLs and your executables in it, press a button, and it will tell you every potential problem that your application would run into running on the Mono runtime.
But it's about a version behind.
It is? Okay. So it is about a version behind. I haven't run it recently because I haven't had a need
It's
to.
still on 2.8.
Oh, wow. Oh, and we're only in 2.10, so that's not too far behind. The latest version of Mono, I believe, is full C# 4.5? Or I know it's 4.0. I know they started to work on some of the released 4.5 features. I'm not sure if they're feature complete yet, but they do pretty well at keeping up. So when 4.5 is officially released, it won't be too long before Mono has 4.5 features. So everybody always screams about the patents when you bring up the conversations about Mono cross-platform. First off, the compiler and the language itself are are actual standards, so anybody can actually implement their own implementation legally. Code is covered under the Microsoft Community Promise. Without going into a lot of detail, basically Microsoft came out a few years ago and said, we will not sue the creators or anybody that is using Mono to write C# applications. And this was a big deal. There's actually, you can go search the Microsoft.com website, find the press release. they won't be able to bury this.
No one believed them when it came out.
Yeah, nobody believed it when it came out. But they've actually made pretty good on it. There are a variety of open source licenses under which Mono is written. The main core, like the Mono compiler and runtime, are, I believe, GPL. And then some other specific pieces are a combination of BSD, X11, Apache. They basically run the gauntlet of open source licenses. Finally, if you have more questions about patents regarding Mono, here's a little website for you to go look at. It's a huge FAQ. They explain everything in more detail that I've just touched on up here. Like basically all of these have multiple paragraphs explanations for them. So I encourage you to go read that and check it out. Give that to your company lawyers so that they don't freak out. So how are we going to use C# to develop mobile applications? The answer is MonoTouch and Mono for Android. These are both built by a company called Xamarin, which is an offshoot of the Mono team from Novell. When Novell got bought by Attachmate, they basically laid off the entire Mono team. The Mono team started the company, and they sell MonoTouch and Mono for Android. They're a little pricey, but you can download them for free and develop in them. You just can't actually release anything without paying for it. So some resources. I'm just trying to get to the code, so if I'm going too fast, if you have questions, feel free to ask them. I will answer them to the best of my ability.
How pricey?
$3.99 for a professional license, and it only goes up.
License per developer.
Yes, it's a single seat. So if you yourself, as a independent contractor, want MonoTouch, it's $3.99.
So for
And to get both, they give you a discount if you buy both. It's like $100 off.
It's not prohibitive.
It's not prohibitive, but I don't have $400. It's like $399.99. I don't have $400.
We're not talking Photoshop prices.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't personally have that much money to go and drop.
It's like ReSharper. You might win one at, like, we should give a freebie giveaway one of our next meetings.
Yeah, we should, shouldn't we? I'll see if I can't get some for the January meeting.
Well, I would say if you're in a corporate environment, you should be able to.
In a corporate environment, there's an enterprise level license, which is more expensive because it offers enterprise support and they charge extra money for that.
Enterprise pricing is $1,000, but there's also like enterprise upgrade and enterprise.
There's some different pricing tiers, but I encourage you to go to the Xamarin website. They have it all broken down for you. These guys have been doing this a long time, so Mono actually runs fairly well. It's about on par with the regular .NET. It's like a hair slower. We're talking like a second or two sometimes in most cases. Sometimes it's faster, depends on what you're doing. They have benchmarks on the Mono website if you're interested. Like I said, these guys are very smart and they've been doing it a long time. So some limitations. First off is that MonoTouch, which is what you use to write iPhone applications, is Mac only. Reason for this is you need Xcode. Because in order to modify the interfaces, your UI, you have to use Xcode's interface builder. So you have to have Xcode, which means you have to have a Mac, which means you have to, you can't run it on Windows.
Do you need a developer license?
For Xcode? No.
Well, I'm saying-
Well, you need to have a developer account, but you don't have to pay the $99.
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
So you want to deploy it.
Yeah. When you deploy, you gotta pay, but that's pretty normal. The non-paying developer accounts don't have access to the betas, so you won't get access to the next version of iOS until it's released. Next versions of Xcode, that kind of stuff. But yeah, unfortunately for MonoTouch you need a Mac because you need Xcode. Mono for Android isn't 100% complete. It's getting better, and it's getting better quickly. For example, a month ago, in order to do Google Maps implementation on Mono for Android, it was nasty. You actually had to write a Java class, tell the Mono runtime it was a Java resource, and do a lot of extra work to get it to work. Now it's all .NET. They actually got it working pretty well. So they are improving it, and they are improving it quickly, but it's not all there yet. Both of these, the Android and the iOS, have their own limitations. documentation on the exam room website, where they go into incredible amounts of detail about what you can and can't do. One of the primary things is really crazy generic dynamic type stuff won't work. Mainly because they do ahead of time compilation when they compile the apps for iPhone and Android. So they basically run the JIT once and give you the result. So the actual application has to know what those objects are, so you won't get some of your crazier dynamic generic stuff. I'll bring up the website when I flip out of this deal, just so you can kind of briefly see what they say is a limitation. But mostly it's going to be dynamic stuff. So like anybody here who use JSON.NET at any given point? I'm sure most people here have used it at some point. Their JObject, which is a dynamic type, won't work on iOS and Android. Just to give you an example of something that I personally have run into. So like I said, last month we wrote a Twitter search app using the native tools, native language. It's a big hit, or so I like to think, because I did it. And this is kind of what it looked like. We're going to build this exact same thing, but with C#. And you'll get to see the tools that are involved in that, and how that looks, and what that looks like. So, let's go ahead and exit out of this real quick.
Mr. Tweet That Hoe? That's in your picture?
What's that?
There's somebody named Mr. Tweet That Hoe in your picture there.
I just did it and took a screenshot. I didn't even pay attention. I guess that's bad?
Yes.
So here's the Xamarin website. Y'all can see that, do y'all?
Nope.
One of these days I'm going to remember to turn off mirroring when I flip out. One of these days. Wait a second. I see it on my screen. Y'all can see it in a second. There we go. So this is the Xamarin website. Just to give you an idea, we'll go to the documentation, iOS, and we will look at the limitations, just so that y'all can kind of see what they say are the limitations. Can y'all all see that okay, everybody?
Yeah.
So generic virtual methods, that ain't going to work. P invokes and generic types, that's not going to work. Value types is dictionary keys. So you can kind of get an idea of what's not going to work. And if it doesn't work here, it's probably not going to work on the Android version either. And just to show you, I can show you the limitations on the Android version as well. Limitations. Let's see, limited dynamic language support. Limited knowledge generation support, iOS, iParsables, serializables. So there you go. There's some of the limitations that you'll run into. I'm not going to wait for everybody. If you want to write this down, please just go to the slides will be up available online for the session, so you can actually get back to the links that are in the slides. Just to cover the pricing aspect, once the Microsoft Internet decides that it would like to actually load things. So there's the pricing. Professional is $399. Enterprise is $1,000. Enterprise Priority is $2,500. And then there's upgrades for both. The Mono for Android will run the same price, and as you can see, they'll also support you a nice discount if you buy both. And by nice discount, I mean $100. These guys actively update their products pretty regularly, actually. In fact, I just installed a new version of the MonoTouch beta yesterday, so they have new code coming out soon. So they do upgrade their stuff fairly frequently. So just because you buy it now and something new comes out and they improve it somehow doesn't mean you won't get that. You'll actually get those changes. And it all runs on Mono, which they also update pretty frequently. And if you let's see, it's GitHub. how many people here have used and are familiar with Git? I know my normal crew is, so okay, that's good. So here's the Mono project on GitHub. MonoDevelop, which we'll see in a bit. Mono itself. There's the Mac core stuff. There's also some, there's also Mono Mac, so you can actually write your Mac OS X applications in Mono as well, run them. There's a bunch of good stuff here. If you're wanting to see some really good .NET code and see some really smart programmers, I highly recommend reading their code because they're very good at what they do. So with that in mind, say hello to MonoDevelop.
Hey!
Thank you, Claudia, for joining in and being invited. Appreciate it. It means a lot. This is essentially the closest thing to Visual Studio that you will see in Linux or OS X. And so if you like Visual Studio and you want that kind of IDE environment for doing your C# on not Windows, this is what you're going to be looking at.
Do you have ReSharper?
No. That's everybody's first question is, do I have ReSharper? No, you do not.
But you can code it yourself if you want.
Yeah, you can definitely download the source code and add the ReSharper shortcuts if you feel so inclined. As Miguel likes to say, they take pull requests. So
I'll put that in the heap of things I'll never get to.
yes. So I've got a shell of a program that we will be using. You go to github/mkoby/find tweets mono, just like that. You can go ahead and pull the source code if you wish to follow along. It's not required that you follow along, but if that's the kind of thing you enjoy doing, by all means, feel free. Get my cheat sheets down. Yes, I have cheat sheets, but I only have 2 hours to build a whole application, so hopefully y'all don't mind if I have cheat sheets.
We're not paying for this app, so.
Hopefully you're not paying for this app. If you're paying for this app, somebody's overcharging. So let's get into writing the application. So it's going to go ahead and load. MonoDevelop will open your .NET, your Visual Studio SLN files. It will also save into the .sln format. So projects you write on here will open in Visual Studio. Now whether or not they will compile is a completely different story. But as long as you're not doing anything too crazy and aren't trying to access libraries that obviously you can't get on Windows, you shouldn't run into too many problems. I know the font is small. I will fix it in 1 second. In fact, let's do that now. Go to preferences. So there's their preferences window here. Would that be big enough for everybody, or do I need to go bigger? 24. Let's do 24, just to make sure we get it all covered. Oh, that's
good.
Is that a little too big, or?
No, that's good.
That's good.
Okay. Okay. So just like I did for last month's application, where it was Objective C version, and I kind of wrote some code just so I wouldn't have to write things like making HTTP requests and parsing JSON. I went ahead and did that for this as well. So I have a tweet item class here, as you can see. It's a .NET class. Hey, isn't that kind of cool? I think this will actually break it, so let me get rid of that real quick. And then we have a Twitter client class, which this is how all the actual web requests and parsing of the JSON that we get back from Twitter gets done. The code looks ugly. I apologize in advance. The point of this session is to get you from point A to point B and show you that, hey, you can actually write a .NET, use .NET to write your iPhone applications. I'm not going for the cleanest or best looking code. I'm sure Claudio and JV would love to take this and refactor it to all get out, which you can, by the way, because it's on GitHub and it's a publicly available repository. I'm sorry, what's that?
You take pull requests.
Yes, I do.
Does it run right now?
I don't know. Let's see if it compiles first.
I checked it out.
Yeah, it should compile and run, but law of demos means like what I did before the demo isn't necessarily what's going to happen before when I actually go to run it.
Just to prove that we're working with a, something that works.
Yes, it loads. There's no UI right now, so obviously you're not seeing much, but it does load. So ta-da, yay, we just ran a .NET application on an iPhone. So does everybody understand kind of what these two classes do? They're basically nothing more than making calls to Twitter, getting back our data, and putting them into a generic list of items.
Do you have to have MonoDevelop?
Yes, because MonoTouch is a plugin into MonoDevelop. So is Mono for Android. In fact, I'll even show you all that real quick. So there's this MonoDevelop. How many here people have used Macs before? I know the people who actually have run them, but no, okay.
Ever?
Ever.
Like old school, I don't care.
Basically, you got your menu bar.
Like an iBook?
Got your menu bar, so you got the add-in manager right here. So this will pop up. What's the?
Where's the unit test at?
Oh.
Yeah, there are no unit tests on this, but that's.
Okay.
Jared, what's the shortcuts for doing the zooming in again? I never remember.
Control.
Oh, that'll work. So here's our add-in manager.
What did you use to do that?
Control and mouse, apparently. Didn't know that. Is that an OS X? Is that a Lion thing or?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right,
Do tell.
go. I'm okay with that. So here's our add-in manager.
Oh,
You can
is it just for Mono?
see here's our mobile
no.
development
Yeah.
piece. We have
No,
Mono,
it's just all
Mono
right.
iPhone development and Mono for Android.
Oh.
And once you have the add-ins into MonoDevelop, it'll ping back to Xamarin servers, check for updates, do all that kind of nice, fun stuff.
You get the whole control.
Can you,
So-
Fingers.
can you set breakpoints?
Oh.
Yes,
And can you evaluate variable?
yes.
Really?
Did he get out of that one?
How many people here have ever heard of Sharp Develop? Sharp Develop, for those who don't know, was an open source IDE that was written for doing .NET development, and it was written in C#. It predates MonoDevelop. MonoDevelop is actually a fork of Sharp Develop. So everything that Sharp Develop did, MonoDevelop does as well. So setting breakpoints, getting code completion, all that stuff works.
It would be under keyboard setting.
I was surprised that there's some magic going on there, because not only is it going to have to compile the native, but it's going to have to do some magic at runtime.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
In fact, when we actually run the app, we'll get to a point where we can actually do stuff. If you remind me, I'll be more than happy to demonstrate.
Wait, you can debug.
Mhm.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I missed that part.
Yeah, that was his question, is can you debug? Okay, so we have this shell of an application with our classes for our Twit items and our connecting to Twitter. So now we actually need an interface. So just like with Xcode, there's this there is this XIB file or NIP file, which is where your interface lives for iOS and Mac applications. So I'm going to double click that guy, and boom, it's going to open Xcode, and we have an empty UI. These are all our objects over here that we can use to build our user interface. We're going to be using two distinct UI elements. I'm going to use the search bar. And we're going to go ahead and use the table view. Where is it? There it is. Use the table view. Boom. Okay. So we have the UI. Yay! But now we have to connect it to our code. So Jared, this is what you were asking last month about, dragging and dropping into the actual source file.
Yep.
We're going to go ahead and open. We clicked on the assistance assistant editor. And what this does is it opens both my UI, that's so we can see it, and it opens the .h file that would normally be associated with the view controller if we were doing Objective-C. So we have to actually tie our UI elements to this file. Once we save this file, MonoDevelop is going to do some magic in the background and regenerate its designer.cs file to add our elements that we've added. So I'm going to control left click. And as you can see, it's asking me where I want to drop this. And we want it to be an outlet. And this is going to be a search bar, so we're going to say Twitter search bar. And click connect. And it's going to drop that guy right in there for us. And then we're going to do the same thing with our table view. And this will be search results table.
I'm sorry, I missed, when you open this project, is it in MonoTouch project is a Visual Studio SLN file, right?
Yes.
And did it automatically, the template automatically add the XID file?
Yes.
It did include that?
It does include, if you do I set it up as a single view application. You get some options just like you would, here, let me show you rather than go through the process of trying to explain. The new solution, select C#, and you'll see, here's the MonoTouch, and I can select iPhone, empty project, utility, master detail, single view, tab, GL. So you get some templates just like you would if you were in Xcode. And they're very similar to the defaults you would get in Xcode as well. So if you're familiar with Xcode, you'll be familiar with the ones you get in here.
And then when you opened that up in Xcode to design the UI, did you open just the XID file?
Yes.
Okay.
What happened is I actually literally double-clicked on the zip file, and then when I did that, it opened Xcode to the UI. As we've moved, we can actually still go in here and select it just like we would anything else. So you can kind of navigate around. I wouldn't muck around too much in Xcode, and only do the things you need to do, which is putting your UI elements onto the screen and connecting them to outlets.
So it's interesting that here you're actually seeing like .h files and things that you see those back in the MonoDevelop.
You see, this actually gets turned into a designer.cs file for your view controller, just like a WinForms or a WPF, etc. Actually, I don't think WPF does that, does it? It's been a while.
The .designer file.
But for like a WinForm, like WinForms uses them,
Yeah.
so it's very similar to that.
So what was the same WPF does?
I'm sorry?
What are you saying the WPF doesn't do?
Designer.cs files.
Oh, yeah.
So does Mono for Android do the same kind of thing?
No. Mono for Android actually, in Android you do, your layout's mostly XML based. Some people are like, oh, it's like XAML. No, it's nothing like XAML. But it is very much, it's like a combination of XML and HTML. Like you have XML where you throw in HTML attributes and properties onto things. You get your box, your CSS box world. You still mostly do that in XML here. So you would actually load the XML file inside of MonoDevelop and edit it manually. There's nothing stopping you from doing it in Eclipse where you get the nice GUI for designing your UIs and then copying those files back across, but it doesn't do it in an automatic fashion like it does for the iPhone. The iPhone, the XIB files are essentially XML files, but they're nasty. If you've ever actually looked at one without the pretty interface builder, it's nasty. Like there's no way you could write one manually. I mean, I'm sure somebody could, but why would you waste the time? fact that that they give you Xcode, the option to go into Xcode because it's easier, and plus that's how you design interfaces in iOS. It's a real big mess actually because used to Interface Builder was a separate application in Xcode. So when Xcode 4 came out and it was all combined, it actually broke MonoTouch for about 3 months because it just didn't. There was no way to actually really muck with it. You actually had to install Xcode. You had to have Xcode 4 and Xcode 3 installed, and specifically tell it to open XIB files with Xcode 3. It was a mess. But they got it working. Works wonderfully now. It used to crash your system when you ran beta for this. Now it works, so it's awesome. So we've attached our UI elements to our to some outlets in our file. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I should be able to come back over to MonoTouch, or MonoDevelop, sorry. And this designer file should now have my outlets. And you'll notice their Twitter search bar and search results table, which is what I named my outlets in Xcode. And you'll notice they have some really nice attributes. So they're marked as outlets.
Is that generated on save?
Yes. It's generated on save. So when it is doing some code generation in the background. Do not edit this file. Do not edit this file.
What's that warning?
That big warning says this file has been generated automatically by MonoDevelop. Actions made in Xcode Designer. If it is removed, they will be lost. Manual changes to this file may not be handled correctly. In fact, they will actually just completely be lost. Because on regeneration it would break it. So that's what happens when you do you go into Xcode, add your UI elements, add outlets for them, save it, you get Designer CS file. Now, just to demonstrate, we're going to just real quickly here show you that. I don't know if y'all can see that. But got my code completion with my Twitter search bar, which is what I just named my outlet over in Xcode. So now I can access those UI elements in my C# code. Come on, everybody, that's really cool. Woo! That's why we're all here, right?
I have got a question. Where do they have VI key bindings for MonoDevelop?
I think so. I think it's an option in one of the options. I don't have it turned on.
Now that I've been doing VI key bindings in Visual Studio for the past year, I'm like, oh no, I can't type anymore. I'm like, where is all my shortcuts? It's really sad.
There you go, Josh. There's a key binding section. If you want to change them all, you can go to that.
Go nuts.
Yeah. You also get, just so everybody's aware, you get some different default syntax highlighting stuff. You can actually go ahead and do the Visual Studio color scheme, which was already kind of what we were looking at. But you get some defaults installed so you can kind of customize your MonoDevelop environment to your liking. All right, so now that we've got our UI elements, and we can access them from our .NET code, now we've got to start kind of wiring them up. Before I go too much further, I want to iterate that I've been doing iPhone development since about June, July. So however long that is, take that, shorten it. That's how long I've been doing MonoTouch, Mono for Android. Been using Mono for a while, but specifically MonoTouch, Mono for Android stuff is kind of new to me. So I'm not the expert. I will try to answer your questions to the best of my ability, but I might not know all the answers.
Are you a Mono or Objective-C developer now?
I jump back and forth. We're kind of at a standstill at my job right now, so we're not real sure what we're going to do. But the app will probably actually be written in Mono, mainly for the because I want to put all the business logic in a nice little DLL, and then just wire up UI elements. Because you can, in fact, do that. Those who are at my Mono talk at TechFest would have saw that demonstration. Now all of you are going, man. So, I can give that talk again. Not today, though.
So you do all your business logic in separate C# projects
Yes.
that you can then test.
That you can then test. Yeah, exactly. And then you can.
UI Mono.
Exactly. So then you get your, and again, you have to be careful when you do that because there are some things that don't work on iPhone and Android, so you have to, sometimes your test will pass because, hey, it works fine when it's in its own class library project, but when you start using it inside of MonoTouch or Mono for Android, you'll run into problems, and then you'll have to go back, modify your tests, and modify your code to make sure that you're not using anything that doesn't work.
On Windows Phone and on that Silver Lake that we've got. In fact, for that matter, even in Windows Phone, there are really important interfaces like observable collection and iNotify property change. I'm assuming that's not supported here. Like, there's no way to automatically wire up an iPhone list to update items when something changes in the collection.
I don't have enough experience with that particular type of setup to be able to tell you yes or no.
Do you know if those interfaces exist though?
If they exist in Objective-C, in the Objective-C version of iPhone and iPhone development, there's a really good chance they exist in MonoTouch.
It's a different pattern.
It'd be a different pattern, but they do exist.
So
The reason why I'm asking is if I'm going to make a library that I share across all 3 phones,
Right.
right? And I'm going to have inside of that library, I'm going to have my business class, like your tweet item.
Mm-hmm.
In order to take advantage of that pattern on Windows Phone, it would need to implement iNotify property change. Now, on Android and iPhone, they wouldn't pay attention to it, but I need to know, is it possible to at least implement that pattern so that one library is usable?
But notify property change is more of a UI thing. It shouldn't be on your business objects at all.
I'm sorry?
Identify property change, observable collection, those things are UI specific. They shouldn't be on your business objects. Entities and things like
If
that.
I was going to do that, then I would have a Twitter item.
We can argue the observable pattern another time, but that does mean that you'll have to wrap every business entity that you have.
In the UI specific thing, yeah.
Well, it will be singular Windows phones, that way, because Android and iPhone have different patterns. Like iPhone, if you want to accomplish the same thing, like you add an item, you'd use notifications and say that this thing's added an item, and then you would refresh it. It's a little more, it's a different model. It's a different UI.
There were actually, Xamarin just released what, I forget what they called it. Let me check their blog real quick, because they did a blog post on it, and I don't want to misspeak. They're in the process of writing some wrappers to kind of fix that, Windows Phone handles it this way, Android handles it this way, all that stuff. Here we go. The Xamarin Mobile API. I haven't personally had a chance to play with this. They literally released it, I think they released it the day before Thanksgiving, or like a day before, 2 days before. Like, they released it last week. But this is kind of their kind of way they're trying to further abstract a lot of the stuff that you would end up doing yourself to properly go across all 3 environments. So they're trying to help you do less work by doing it for you. Again, I don't have enough experience with this to tell you if it really works or how good it is or anything like that, but it is something that they are thinking about and it's something they're working towards.
Just for, just mainly framework things, or does this also attempt to deal with it's location? Okay, so at least does location.
Can you scroll down just a little bit more? A little infographic right there.
And it's all around. Okay, cool.
So it's their way of kind of abstracting that a little bit for you.
It's mono phone yet.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it's C#, and
Yeah.
theirs will actually work because they sell it, like, for a lot of money.
Adobe. PhoneGap is all Adobe. And it's in Adobe's JavaScript, which makes it pour
money into that.
Yeah, these guys have been doing it longer. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, JavaScript.
All right, so again, going back, we've got our UI elements. We need to wire them up. So, first thing we're going to do is we need. Who here has done iPhone development, like actual Objective-C iPhone development a little bit? Okay, so you understand that you have your for things like search bar and table view, you have your delegates and data sources for those, right? And you have to wire all that up. Okay, well, that doesn't change when you go to C#. You just have to do it a little differently. And again, I'm not the expert here, so my code might be bad. Forgive me in advance, but it will work. That is one of the things. It's got to work at least, right? So there's my search, results, table, data source. Okay, so I right-clicked on the solution, or right-clicked on the project, clicked Add File. I selected a class, an empty class, and I gave it a name. This is standard. You do this in Visual Studio all the time. I'm not really going to spend some time zooming in. Okay. We are going to need our MonoTouch libraries. We're going to drop those in here. And because I know I'm going to need it, my collections, generic, and I'm also going to need system.ready. I know I'm going to need those later, so I'm just going to go ahead and add them
Can
now.
I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
What version of the framework do we get by default when we do this? Is there
Mono for iPhone,
Mono 5? No, I'm talking about the .NET framework.
4.0.
Okay.
It always defaults, MonoTouch pretty much, MonoDevelop pretty much defaults to the latest. I think you can go in and tell, like, you can go into the settings and change that if you would rather do it on .NET 3.5 or whatever, you can do that, but why would you want to go a version behind just because?
Some of us in this room still have to deal with Windows 2000.
Yeah, that's your fault. You keep staying there and I'll tell you to leave.
It's generic.
So, obviously this class is not going to just handle our UI table view data source magically by itself, right? We're going to have to tell it to do that. UI table view, and let me go ahead and zoom in a little bit just so you can see. Data source, now we got our awesome code completion, like I said. We can come in here, you can tell we want to implement some abstract members. Right-clicked on the deal, click the refactor, implement abstract members, and selected which one I was trying to do. Yes?
Can you just use your view controller like you can on Objective-C?
You could. You can actually use .NET, your .NET delegate type stuff to do it, because all of this stuff is pretty much delegates anyway, or actions anyway, except the rows and section. That's actually a property. If you try to set that manually, it kind of gets wonky. That's what I initially tried to do. Then when did some reading, went, oh, this is kind of how you're supposed to do it. Some people do, in some of their examples, will put it inside of the regular view controller. I like this because it separates it out and makes it a little bit cleaner. So, because we're going to need to know how many rows are going to be in the table, we're going to need to, we're getting back an list of tweet items from our client. We're going to go ahead and create that. Come on. Come on. Okay.
You've got that in your namespace, not in class.
Oh, thank you. Like, why is that not working? I got used to all the Objective-C. I got used to in Java. I got used to having the opening bracket on the same line. Totally been throwing me off. Okay, there we go. That's much better. Okay. And I know eventually I'm going to need a constructor to pass that information. I'm going to go ahead and do this. Okay. And I'm going to set this guy to return our tweets account. If I get through this, I'll show you the Objective-C code and the C# code so y'all can kind of see what they look like kind of side by side. We can hit the buttons, right? I'm going to use my cheat sheet just so we can kind of get through this kind of fast because I only have about an hour left and I want to get done. If I do something and you have questions, I'm going to kind of explain as I go. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. But I am going to try to get through this whole thing and get it working before we run out of time. So again, if you've done Objective-C development, a lot of the code is going to read in a familiar way because it's going to read in but it's going to be like a C# version of the Objective-C code. So for example, for this, we'll need our string, we'll need our cell identifier. And I know it's going to be called a tweet item, so you probably notice we haven't set up our table view cell. We'll get to that in a bit. And then we're going to create our table view cell, and we're going to grab the table view. We're going to DQ table cell and use the cell. I don't know why it's not giving me my code completion. Okay. And then just like in the Objective-C version, we're going to check to make sure that cell is has something in it, and if not, we're going to perform some actions to get it in there. Bundle. We're going to load our nib, and it's going to be the tweet item cell. If you were here last week, a lot of this code is going to kind of read familiar, like I said. If you've done Objective-C programming before, again, this is going to, you're like, oh, okay, I see what he's doing. I'm not quite sure why it's not giving me my code completion, but normally give me code completion. And if anybody sees me making a mistake, by all means, please go, hey, idiot, you're making a mistake. Depending upon who you are, I may or may not take offense.
Hey, idiot. Statements in there for UI table view cell and SRA.
Say that again?
You have the using statements required for UI table view cell and SRA.
I thought that was the MonoTouch UI using statements. Can you scroll all the way to the top? The UI kit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I copied over the mono. These are the primary MonoTouch using statements. Anytime you're going to touch your Objective-C stuff, you're going to need those guys. And if we error, we're going to go ahead and say, hey, you failed to load the tweet item cell from the nib, or from the bib, whichever one works for you. And then we're going to get our row, just like we would for, what is this called? It's index path. I'm not sure why I'm not getting my code completion.
You don't have the index path defined.
Yeah, I do. See that NS index path right there?
Oh, okay.
It's the font. The font's doing it for you. What we can do, just to make, just go ahead and close it and reopen it now. Probably reload everything. And so now we got our row. We want to get the right tweet item. So our tweets row.
Oh, you might be. Are you still running the app?
No, we're not running that. Let me make sure this is gonna fail here.
That's why.
Oh, now I'll put past return value. Okay, that's expected. We haven't actually returned the cell yet. We'll add that in real quick just to make sure. And we'll go ahead and just make sure it builds. Make sure I'm not messing something up crazy. of putting the cart before the horse a little bit by writing building the UI elements inside of code before I had actually gone into Interface Builder and, you know, built the UI. But I've done this a few times, so I know how I'm going to do it. So we're going to have a UI label, and it's going to have the username. And we'll get this off the cell, which will be a view with tag. Is this looking familiar to everybody that's done iPhone development, at least a little bit?
Yeah, they show the warning in that. The warning's just like Xcode. It's a lot
Yes.
nicer.
Yeah, that's kind of how they're trying to keep a little bit of that consistency. So if you're familiar with the Xcode environment, it'll carry over a little bit for you here. Our name label .text is going to be our tweet .username, and we're going to have the same thing for. We're going to have the actual, obviously the actual tweet text. That's what this is going to be. This will be the tweet label.
Do you at least get var?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. If you really must see it.
Yes.
Yes. I'm changing all your code to bars.
So.
You idiot, you're not using vars.
Yeah. You know what?
Don't you want your code to look pretty? Is that the whole point?
No, I actually like to know what I'm doing. Be able to read, what I did, rather than going, "Huh, what's that bar supposed to be?"
Well, sometimes
You wanna-
people more than once. I tell them once.
Tag.
You would email me for these tags, or
You could actually do some enums and names and define, if you want to do consts or something like that, you could do that. I'm not doing that this go around. Again, my point here is to get us from point A to point B.
Do they have to be const? Because it's compiled, so it kind of has
You
to
could
be
do standard like, hey, this is never going to change. Whatever code practice you use for that, you can use that. So if you use enums or use consts or...
No, I was thinking static read-only type of stuff.
Yeah, if you want to do that kind of stuff, yes, you could do that. But again, if you make it static, you can't read a static from a non-static. That causes problems. So we're going to go about our tweet that'll be our tweet text. Does anybody have any questions? I mean, I'm going through this. I just want to make sure everybody understands what's going on. We're not having any problems. Claudia, are we good on video? Because I know you've got stops and things.
Sure, you're good.
Okay. I'm going to do something a little different. If you were here last week, what I did was I wrote the code that handles the avatar image for Twitter. I wrote the code without threading it, just so you could see how nasty it looked. And then I went back and did some Grand Central Dispatch offloading so it would actually load correctly and do different threading queues and stuff like that. I'm not going to do that this time. I'm just going to actually write the thread pool, tell it to go onto the thread, and do it this time around rather than do all that, because y'all understand that's how it's supposed to be. Thread pool.queue is your work item.
So under the hood, it is using Grand Central.
No, they actually have some Grand Central classes that you can use. However, the documentation for it is bad. Like, it doesn't explain it very well.
So the thread pool's their own thread pool.
You're basically using the .NET thread. You're going to use the
Okay.
Make sure I do this right. Close that out so I don't forget later. Okay. So we're going to do our UI image. It's going to be just an image.
Are you sure you don't want to use var?
Jared, I will kick you out. I'm just saying.
I mean, you're casting it right after the equal sign. Most of it. Come on.
You're safe. You're Claudia's president.
Okay. I'm just egging you on.
Yeah, you want to?
Josh doing the haggling. The haggling.
URL. We're going to grab the URL from string, and our string is going to be the tweet.image URL. And we're going to close all of these parentheses. Yay. So now we've got the image. On iPhone, for those who haven't done actual iPhone development, on iPhone, and this might be the same way on Windows Phone 7, I don't know. But on iPhone, you can only update the UI on the main thread. You can't do it in a background thread. So anytime you're threading, in order to update your UI, you actually have to tell it specifically inside the thread, hey, run this piece on the main thread because I'm specifically going to be updating UI elements. So in here, they're nice enough to give us this nice invoke on the main thread. And we get to use some really nifty, I believe that's a, yeah, nice little lambda. And then we say our UI image view. No, I'm not using var.
But come on.
I'll push,
You wanna-
push request.
Change all this code to bars.
Again, I take pull requests. So, do what you gotta do. Do what you feel needs to be done.
And watch him ignore.
I think you're getting that password right there.
No.
View, image. Okay.
Those are different
So-
types. Should have used a var. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. Pick on the guy who's standing in front of everybody. None of you other people would do it. So, just to kind of reiterate what we did here is we told what this class does is it actually gets and creates the cell for each row in the UI table view. So we tell it, okay, look, I have a cell identifier, so we identify our type of cell that we're going to, or table row cell that we'll have, and we say, okay, go ahead and DQ one if if we're scrolling and it's been discarded. Go ahead and just reuse that rather than create a whole new one. If you can't do that, go ahead and create one from this user interface element that we've defined. Now that we've got that, go ahead and load up our individual UI elements, our image, our username label, and our label for where the tweet will actually go. And then once you've built all that, go ahead and return that cell. And we've done the image piece on its own thread and updated the UI element back on the main thread. So does everybody kind of follow what happened there? Just to make sure we're all on the same page and everybody understands. Okay. So now that I've done that, I should probably go actually build the UI, right? So, again, we're going to go ahead and do our folder, our new file. And we're going to go ahead over here, go to MonoTouch, and you'll notice that we have an empty iPhone interface definition. This will be the equivalent if you went into Xcode and selected empty nib or empty zip or however you want to say it. So we're going to go ahead and name this our tweet item cell, because that's what we named it in there. We told it to load from nib. We said tweet item cell. So we're going to go ahead and call it that. Click new. It's going to add the file. So now that we've got the file there, we're going to go ahead and double click it. And again, it's going to load Xcode. And since this is an empty interface definition file, there is nothing here. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to start by dragging this table cell view, cell into our interface file. So now we have a cell that we can build something with. I need it to be 75 pixels tall. Again, done this a few times, so I know. Because we want to be able to build all the elements and see them nicely. We're going to drop an image view onto this guy. And we're going to drop two labels. We're going to drop a label kind of towards up here, because this will be the username. And we're going to drop a label right under that guy. This guy's going to get expanded, so he takes up all the space there, and this guy's going to get expanded, so he takes up all the space there. So now we got our elements there. We're going to start mucking around with some of the different settings. So this is going to be the username one, so I'm going to select in Koby. And I'm going to make this font a little smaller, and I'm also going to bold it. I believe I'd go with 10 or 12. Oh, I did the wrong one. Does anybody know how many tweets you're allowed on a tweet?
140.
Boom. Thank you, sir. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 10 characters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 140 characters. And on one line looks nasty, so we're going to set that guy to 0. Let's make this guy not bold. And now we're going to define its data source with our new data source, and we're going to pass it our tweets list that we just created. And then we're going to tell it, go ahead and tell it to reload the data. And we're going to make that guy not hidden, because we're going to actually set it to hide when we first load the UI. That's false. And we're going to go ahead and cut and paste this guy up to here. And do that. Alright, let's make sure that guy builds with no problems. Looks like we've built with no problems. We have errors, but one is the icon, the app icon hasn't been set, so it's just a nice ugly gray icon. And the other one has something to do with the orientations aren't set up right. Doesn't matter for our purposes, but if you're going to actually do this and release something, you probably want to fix those two things. So it built. Do we want to see if it runs? Alright, so here we go. Oh, it's going to load this is actually the Retina display hardware version. Doesn't look like it loaded my search bar. So something went wrong.
You hit it.
They have the search bar?
Yeah.
Oh, I hit the search bar, not the search result table. That would be why. Yeah, feeling kind of stupid right now. Law of demos, something had to go wrong, right? That's how it works. Okay, let's try that again. Yay! Okay, so we actually have some UI. Now, let's go ahead and MonoTouch. Go. Did I not click go? Okay, something's obviously not working. Hey, we're going to get a chance to debug, right? Yes. So, oh!
No, put a breakpoint in there.
No, I don't need to put a breakpoint.
Oh, I'm going to see the breakpoints.
You kind of have to call. I have to call my method that actually sets up the calling the search button, right? Yes, 0 for 2. Let's see if I can go 1 for 3. Baseball, anybody? There we go. Oh, hey, look at that. Something happened.
You probably have an error.
Are you connected to the net?
Oh, that's a good. Yeah. No, I'm not anymore.
Aha. I win.
It was bound to happen. I was on it for a while.
I don't know what my big
We would have all figured that out if you had put a breakpoint.
No, we wouldn't. We wouldn't have got to that code. That's what my big point was.
If you had just put a breakpoint in there.
Can you set a breakpoint in Chrome?
Can you set the breakpoint on a running application, like, just
And is that a Mac problem or is that your problem? No.
It's actually not letting me connect to Wi-Fi at all, which is kind of odd. It might be just the fact that everybody's on the line.
Tried earlier, I couldn't get in.
Well, I was on earlier.
Josh is on right now. I think whoever has an IP is on. If you want, you can connect over to
Peter, I believe you've
I might have
stolen
to.
all the Wi-Fi.
Is what?
1 times.
13?
No, 13 times.
13 times, okay.
Just connect over.
Okay.
I just found something else that I read.
It's not showing me other networks.
You
Ah.
have a search.
There we go. Which one are you? sure we have internet connection. All right, so we're 0 for 3. It's in a stuck state, so we're going to go ahead. See if I can go 1 for 4. Let's see if I can go 0.25. There we go.
Nice.
Awesome.
Batting 250.
There you go. And just to prove that we're not staged or anything, let's somebody randomly throw something that they want to search for.
Hashtag that awkward moment.
Is this going to be safe for work, Chris?
I don't know.
An awkward moment.
That doesn't seem to actually worked.
Just saying.
I'm probably not URL encoding the hashtag, so that's probably what's causing it.
Yeah, take out the hash and the.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know, right?
Whoa.
I mean, you just saw it?
There we go. That works better. So, we successfully wrote an iPhone app using C# on OS X. Ta-da.
Very cool.
Do you have to wire the button in programmatically?
I'm sorry?
Do you have to wire the button in programmatically? Or
Yes.
Can you use okay, so you can't use IB actions?
Not that I've seen it. But basically your IB action would be a delegate, like just like in Objective-C world. So it would be the same kind of deal. You'd be doing the same thing. I've never done it. They might have some examples where you can do it, but generally all their examples basically show you wiring, doing the .NET events in that way. At least all the examples that I have seen and the ones on their website. So with the ta-da, are there any questions about what we did, how we did it? I don't know if I want to take your question, but I'm going to anyway.
Have you run across anything on the interwebs or experience that you could not do in modern world that you could do in Objective-C?
Not me personally, mainly because I'm doing just standard stuff. Like I wrote a good chunk of an app for my company in Objective-C. Then the guy went, okay, we're going to have to write the Android version too. I don't want to have a bunch of Objective-C and Java code. I'd like to have as much of a single code base as possible. So I was like, MonoTouch. And I actually got everything that I had working in Objective-C in MonoTouch. It took me a little bit to kind of figure out how to do the data source, data delegates, that kind of stuff. But once I figured it out, it took me about 2 days to actually convert all the code. Okay.
Next part. Did you find...
You just come up with the second part right now.
I just came. Yeah. I work that way. It's awesome. From your perspective, from C# and Objective-C, do you think it was easier to learn Mono knowing Objective-C, or do you think it would be easier to learn Objective-C iPhone from C# using Mono?
Knowing Objective-C first helped.
Yeah.
Because understanding how they kind of wire up things and how to use Interface Builder and what you need in your stuff to make it work helped a lot. Because I initially tried to do it in MonoTouch and kind of went, I don't know. And there are 2 books on MonoTouch. Both of them are rocks, so I don't actually have any of them for giveaway today.
And the third one.
Which you just came up with.
Yeah, it just came up with.
Let me get his question first. You can sit on yours. You already had 2. Come on, yes.
Okay, mine's 2 parts too.
All right. Well, at least you came out and said it.
First part is,
Not like some people.
so this really isn't something that a C# developer can just jump into because of the nib and how you link, how you wire things up.
Their documentation is a little bit better now than it was about 2 months ago when I first started. And also because when I first started doing this, I had already installed Xcode 4. I didn't have Xcode 3. So they were in that process of where things were kind of broken. So there was a lot of weirdness. it's a lot better now. So I think you have a better chance at jumping straight into MonoTouch and Mono for Android using their documentation, because it actually will show you how to load. It loads Xcode and how to wire up the outlets and stuff. It's a little bit better doing that now than it was a couple months back. So I think that somebody, like if you've got a shop that's C# and you need to write an iPhone app, this wouldn't be a bad first step, especially since you can go out, download MonoTouch, MonoDevelop for free. They're both free to at least download and start coding against. You just can't release something without paying for MonoTouch.
You can't release on the App Store, or you can't use it
Period.
within your company? Or
You can't. It will not run on a device.
So you buy the Macintosh and what?
You'll need a Mac for MonoTouch. You definitely need a Mac. Mono for Android will actually work on all three. So if you're going to do Android, and you have a Windows box and want to do that, you are free to do that. It's MonoTouch that requires the Mac, because you need Xcode. So yes, if you're going to do iPhone, you need a Mac.
But you have to get the Mac, then you download the Xcode, or then you get those.
Xcode is free. So you get the Mac, you download Xcode, you download MonoDevelop. You download MonoDevelop, and MonoTouch. And all three of those are free to download. Like I said, you can actually download and code against. I don't have a paid version of MonoTouch running right now.
Yeah.
I have not paid for it. So I couldn't actually plug in somebody's iPhone, copy this app up, and run it. It wouldn't work. It would actually go, no, sorry. But once you download the Mac, you have to pay for. Everything else to get going is free. It's not that much. It's only $1,200 for the cheapest iMac. And you had a second part.
Yeah. You would. I saw where you could do OpenGL, but would you not? I mean, can you do Coco's 2D and those game frameworks?
I don't have any experience with it, so I can't tell you definitively. I can't tell you definitively how that works. You would have to go read their documentation, intro documentation for that. They do have. They actually have a bunch of sample apps. Let me find it first. Zach, I'm still using your Wi-Fi, so do not disconnect me.
You use the knowledge one.
Yeah, the Xamarin GitHub account actually has MonoTouch and Mono for Android samples. As you can see, they're both right there. Yay. So if you want an example of how they're doing it, you can go there and look. And they actually have an example that covers most things. They don't have stuff that covers the simplest stuff, like the OpenGL. They'll have a thing for. The more complicated stuff, they definitely have an example for. Core audio, core image, core data. Like they definitely have examples for that. But like to do what I did, they don't really have an example for that because it's so simple. They have a document for that.
So you would. I'm just wondering. I've gotten into learning Objective-C so I can start making games, but I don't know if any of you are trying to see if you can do the same thing.
Unity 3D. Part of the reason that they started this whole MonoTouch thing is because Unity 3D actually did some of this for them. You could take Unity 3D, they ran Mono and Boo, and ran that on the iPhone to make Unity 3D. That's what a lot of companies use to write their 3D games. And if you go back to PDC 2008, how do you say his last name?
Kaza.
He actually gives it's an hour and a half PDC thing, and he spends a good 15 to 20 minutes talking about doing 3D development on an iPhone with C#. Of course, that was that almost predates MonoTouch a little bit, but it shows you where the birth. It kind of shows you the birthing of that. So it is doable, but again, C# versus C for doing games, your C code's going to run faster. Just plain out. That's provable with benchmarks. Somebody else had a question. I saw their hand up. Yes.
Any performance differential against Objective-C?
Objective-C is going to be a little faster, mainly because it's native. But I personally have, and what I've seen, there hasn't been much. Like I said, the Mono stuff seems to be a hair slower, but your end user isn't really going to know it. Oh, they're not going to look at it. Oh man, they use Mono. This thing's slow. They're on their iPhone. They're not going to do that.
They're gonna blame it on the 3G.
Yeah, they're gonna totally blame it on AT&T before they blame your platform.
That's really not hard to do.
Take your pick. Anybody? Somebody else? Yes. Sorry, I'll make my way around.
It has to compile statically, as you mentioned before,
Yes.
right? Now, is there any risk that they don't do it correctly? I'm all for
They spent a lot of time. They've spent a lot of time doing it. In fact, it's actually one of the things that in that PDC 2008 video they talk about. He actually spends a good number of time talking about static compilation. So they've been doing it since before that, because it's actually been a feature of Mono for quite a while. That used to be one of the things people go, "What's the advantage of using Mono? Static compilation." That used to be one of my go-to arguments, because you can't do it in C#, or you can't do it in Microsoft.NET. In fact, I highly recommend, if you've never looked at Mono, go and look at Mono, because there are some things you can't do, you don't get with .NET, regular Microsoft.NET. Also, specifically, go look at the C# console. Not PowerShell, because everybody goes, "Oh, but PowerShell." No. PowerShell is not a C# console. Mono actually wrote a C# REPL. A read, print, eval loop. A read, eval, print loop, sorry. They've actually written a C# REPL. That works very well. I showed it off at TechFest, and that was like the hit of my talk. Everybody was like, "Oh." Because you could actually load your DLLs and access them and stuff like that. So there's a lot of cool stuff in Mono that you just don't get with regular, good old-fashioned vanilla .NET. In fact, one of the things that the guy likes to say is, he goes, "Oh, we're on .NET 5." Because they have so many features that you just can't do, they don't have in Microsoft.NET. So I highly recommend going and looking at it if you haven't already. Yes, sir.
Can you set the breakpoint?
Do you want to see? Y'all want to see a breakpoint? Is that what?
Let's see the value assess.
Yes.
Let's do it here. Debug. Give it a second. I don't know how well this, hold on. Come on.
What am I missing?
I'm trying to get... Okay, you know what?
I'll share it.
That's what happened.
There we go. Tweets. Capacity count. I can see. Can I do some inspection? I think I can actually...
Is there an intermediate window?
Immediate window.
Immediate window.
Or intermediate window.
It is.
It's not letting me
one
see
of the
the...
two.
It's not letting me see inside for some reason. I don't know why. I think it should. Okay, it's not letting me see. But yeah, you can see right here, I can see some stuff. And it stopped. And, God forgive me, I don't work... I'm sorry?
Immediate window. To the immediate window.
Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Okay. And you have to forgive me, I don't remember the exact the keyboard shortcut, so I'm going to have to click the mouse to do it. But you can step over, you can step into, step out, so you get all your normal.
Can you move it back?
No, you can't move it back. You used to be able to. Maybe not on MonoTouch. But I've done it before. So yeah, you get some debugging options as well. It's just it's not. I've actually had people complain about Visual Studio crashing on them so much. I actually told them go download MonoDevelop, and they've actually been able to use it to do their day-to-day work without using Visual Studio most of the time. Occasionally they have stuff to go to Visual Studio, but they've been able to do like a good chunk of their work inside of MonoDevelop without the Visual Studio crashes and the overhead that Visual Any other questions?
What are the?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I skipped JB a couple times. He had his three part.
Many questions, I have many questions. One was gonna come to your defense, I'm not so sure now.
Damn. No, I'm sorry, go
It
ahead.
was defending your bar stuff, because I know why it was such a mental leap for you, because that's why I was asking about the Objective-C C#, is that you were actually translating Objective-C code to C# in your head. That's why you don't think bar, because bar in Objective-C.
I've actually personally been one of those people who really has never really liked bar. And because the primary
I'm not
reason,
defending you, I like it.
the primary reason I don't like var a lot is because people use it for primitives, ints, strings, doubles, etc. Stop doing that.
Why are they using it for?
I don't know, but they use var for everything, and it's like, stop doing that. If you're gonna define an int, call it an int.
That's like Spanish putting a exclamation point at the front of the sentence. And you say like, this is going to be exciting. See, I told you.
Yeah, it just doesn't, to me, and so to me, people that do that with var ruined it for me. It's like, I understand using it on your some of your own made objects, or even, I use it on link queries. I use it on link queries because that makes sense. But people who do it with, like, for every single instantiation, it's like,
I disagree with you on that.
You're bad at JavaScript, aren't you?
yes.
You use
I'm bad at a lot of things. Exhibit A.
The sensible, you use var when it's clear what the type is.
Yeah.
That's why I don't think link is good, because sometimes you don't know that type.
It's,
But here's the thing, so
second part.
Objective-C,
No, you're another
I have
question.
many questions, so I'm going to include the second part. Ben and Kevin, or particularly Ben, is not really for cross-platform stuff, because he says, if you're going to do it in Objective-C. But I can see the value, because we were talking about PhoneGap. And,
Yeah, you also notice that Ben's kind of taken a whole pro-Apple stance on everything.
But this is, to me, very attractive for cross-platform play, greater than PhoneGap, because PhoneGap, always you're suffering from performance degradation. You can tell a PhoneGap app. If you can't tell this, and to me, also, it's not so much Objective-C kind of has no work, but Android is a whole other thing too.
The Mono people have been working on performance since they basically created the first version of Mono. Performance has always been at the forefront. It's something they take very seriously, and they always are looking at improvements. Like when they do release notes for new versions, that like you'll a lot of times see performance improvement, performance improvement, performance improvement, because that's something they really focus on. So that's why you don't see a lot of performance degradation when you use something like MonoTouch or Mono for Android versus something like PhoneGap, which is I've yet to hear something. The only person I've actually heard say anything good about PhoneGap is this guy right here, and he only says it about very specific pieces.
These are very simple, very simple app. It's fine, but just know that yes, a lot of users can't tell the difference, but there's a good chunk of people that can immediately tell.
Yeah.
This is not a app.
Yeah.
So the question for me is for the Android side is, because I know you were doing some with Objective-C, have you built an Android app with it?
Yes, and the performance is about the same as writing it with. I mean, it's about the same.
About the learning curve and stuff. Same thing for
Java and C# are a lot closer than Objective-C and C#. So it's if you have a Java skill set, it's actually not that much of a jump. You still have to learn the Android idioms, but once you've got those down.
What do you recommend for Android idioms and Android stuff? Because I yet to find a good resource for that.
The Android source code. It sounds horrible, but yeah, that's actually. I mean, it's 2 gigs to download.
It's like,
But yeah, I mean, that's how they write Android code. Like Google they wrote the original camera app, the original launcher app. So looking at their code kind of gives you an idea of how they expect Android code to be written. It's not bad code. It's Java code, and if you don't like Java, you're going to look at it and go, oh my eyes.
mine is learning. I mean, like, there's little things here you don't know anything to see. Knowing what a table data source is and row count stuff would be very difficult. But if you come from the C world, so like if I'm trying to code this for Android, I need to know the Android constructs and ideas.
Yeah, and they're different than Objective-C, and they're very Java-esque. So be prepared for.
Do you have any Android books?
No, I didn't have any Android books over here. Mainly because I knew we weren't going to have time to do both.
Yeah.
I really would have liked to do both, but there's just no. Short of actually having written both apps prior to coming here and then going, hey, look, I wrote both codes. And that didn't seem as fun to me as actually being as somebody actually seen you write C# code to run on an iPhone. I know somebody else had a question. I know you have several more.
At some point, Apple had problems with the whole mono stuff. Did that go away?
It wasn't that they had problems with mono. They were trying to specifically eliminate Flash from running on their iPhones. That's what they were targeting with that whole, if you don't write it in C, C++, or Objective-C, or HTML and JavaScript, those were like their languages. If you didn't write it in they got rid of that.
Okay.
Basically because they said that and the DOJ went, no.
All right.
And they went, okay, we're sorry. We didn't really do it. But yeah,
Okay.
but no, that stuff was eliminated.
Cool.
And like I said, MonoTouch and Mono for Android, they're both fully supported. They're getting updates regularly, so this company is not going away anytime soon. This is where they make money. More? Unless somebody else has one.
Why don't I vote for more of this?
You vote for more of this?
Yes.
Yes, can we do an Android app?
If somebody wants to do the Android version of this app, because I would like to keep the app similar, so that way you kind of get to see the
Native Android?
progression. If we want to do a two-part like we did here,
If someone does native Android development?
yeah, we'll do a native one and then do the, because we did the Objective-C one last month. This month we did C#. So we would do the same thing again. Somebody builds the native version and then builds the C# version, so that you can see the difference. In fact, if we want to real quick, I guess Xcode closed. I'll open it real quick and see. That code is really small. So here is the code which we basically wrote for table for number of rows and sections. Table number of rows and sections, return the count. And then the table view, cell for row, and index path. This is building the cell. This is the Objective-C version. You kind of notice this chunk of code right here. See how that looks? Everybody kind of see? Okay. Scroll back out. This is what it looks like in C#. So they read very similarly, and structurally, like the line, like the indentation path, kind of follows a similar path as well. That's all the code. Let me get back to my presentation real quick because I have a couple more slides. So, if you enjoyed the talk, please go speaker rate it. Give me high marks, give me low marks. Comment. Say you were horrible, you wrote code too slow, or you wrote... Should have used VAR. But there's the speaker rate shortcode. By all means, please go do that. And if you don't have a code math page, by all means, get one. They're awesome. Our own JB graced us with code math and all its awesomeness.
Wait till the dev journey comes out. It's so close. And then Claudio gives me all these changes. Push back for a couple weeks. But
Hey, I'm okay with the slow improvements. It's actually pretty good. This is my code math page. This has all you can find. This is where you can find my Twitter account. You can find my blog. You can find my GitHub code. You can find slides and pages for this talk as well at this website. So anything you need to know about me, if you want to find me for whatever reason, except to hunt me down and kill me. If you want to do that, please go elsewhere. But anything else code related or user group related, by all means, go here. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is, sorry.
Where are you looking at next year?
We don't have a place yet. I have to talk to Zane about it.